It's a jungle out there. Poison in the very air we breathe. You know what's in the water that you drink? Well, I do, and it's amazing. People think I'm crazy. You gotta worry all the time. If you paid attention, you'll be worried too. You better pay attention, cause this world we love so much might just kill you. I could be wrong now, but I don't think so, cause it's a jungle out there. Yes, a jungle out there. All right, let's get down to business. So today we are going to be discussing the TV show Monk. I had a set amount of TV shows that I wanted to do. I eventually am going to do my anime video. The anime video is going to be just like the Merlin video. I'm going to keep talking about it and it's never going to happen until like 30 years later. Literally, I talked about the Merlin video first day I got on YouTube, and I literally did it like 3 years later, 4 years later. So we'll see when I do that anime video. I really do want to do a Jujutsu Kaisen video because I just started Jujutsu Kaisen, and it's not really that hard to understand. I don't know why people were like guessing the complexity of it. But last month we did the first taste of Merlin. The month before that we did the TV show Sleepy Hollow. Before that we did Grimm. So I would like to continue on the first taste journey with Monk. Like I said, I had a few videos I wanted to do before Monk, but Monk, The Last Case came out, and I really want to discuss Monk Season 1, Episode 1, First Taste before I get into the movie. I've already seen the movie. I'm going to do a review on it. I'm going to do a quick bit on it. So without further ado, we're going to get right into the first taste of the TV show Monk. So Monk, it was made in 2002. I consider it a TV series with drama, comedy. It's very funny. It is so funny. Like, this cast is really good, but there is misogyny within them, and I will discuss the misogyny when it comes to the characters, especially Sharona. There's a lot of misogyny that went into her character that I do believe led to her not being there anymore. But I'm not going to get into all that. I'm going to do my best to only focus on Season 1, Episode 1. And maybe I'll talk about some things here and there, but I do recommend you watch it. It is located on Peacock and Amazon Prime, or you can buy it wherever. But there are a lot of places to watch it if you don't have access to those situations. It's a TV show that's an award-winning TV show. But like I said, there's a lot of issues when it comes to it. But I would say the propaganda in this is at a minimum. Honestly, it's at a minimum. It really shows like the knit and grit of cops and how they are just people, that they do make mistakes and they are flawed, especially among the main characters that we follow. There could be like I don't remember every single episode. Okay, I don't remember every single episode. I'm watching Monk the series over again with my boyfriend. We're on season 3, but I've seen every single episode. Like we talked about Grimm. Link is in the description to all my first tastes. Go watch those first tastes if you'd like. Before this one, after this one, whatever. But Grimm had a lot of propaganda. It's baseline of propaganda. And Sleepy Hollow also has a lot of propaganda in it. And for those who don't know what propaganda is, let's refresh. Propaganda is propaganda created in an effort to shape public opinion about police or counter criticism of police and anti-police sentiments. So when I say there's little to no propaganda in here, that's what I'm referring to for those who don't know. Even though it's from the perspective of Adrian Monk, a retired police officer. He actually had to be removed from being a police officer because he had a mental breakdown. Despite us learning down the line that he wasn't really all there to begin with, he goes to the doctor very frequently. He goes to see a therapist. He's a character in the show. He goes to the therapist so much that he's literally a character in the show, but follows the story of Adrian Monk, who's retired after he had a mental breakdown after his wife, who is a writer, who was a writer, was killed because he thought that a car bomb that went off was for him. And I'm not going to get into that because, like I said, I really want you to watch this show. But this show has about 8 seasons, and every season has 16 episodes, if I'm not mistaken, except the first season. And I'm not sure if it's because 2 of them were cut or if they just didn't know how Monk was going to pan out, so they didn't want to make any more. But then they made season 2 and to 8, and there's 16 each. And I don't know if there's any missing or if there's ones that they took out because of whatever reason. But Monk is so great because before I get into everything, Monk is so great because every episode, when I tell you every single episode has a guest star, every single episode has a guest star. Like, they were doing guest stars before, I don't know, there's always been guest stars on TV shows and stuff, but like, I just feel like the guest stars are so great. Like, actors, comedians, Willie Nelson, Snoop Dogg, literally, like, there's so many people that were in this show, if not for just one episode. It's really ludicrous. But let's get into the first episode of season 1. Season 1, episode 1 is called Mr. Monk Meets the Candidate. When I tell you that every episode is like Mr. Monk does what, Mr. Monk does this, Mr. Monk does that, that's basically the calling card of the show. Mr. Monk does something. So it's from the perspective of Adrian Monk. He is now a retired police officer, but he still has connections with the police officers in the precinct because he legitimately is a private detective now, because he has to put food on the table. He has to do something, and he has OCD, and not just, oh, I need to wash my hands. It's, oh, I need to touch every single thing, but oh, I need to keep things clean. Everything needs to be in place. It really affects his work, and that's why he cannot be in the workforce, because even though he was like that before, because it will show, either they retconned it or they just wanted to make Monk seem more outrageous. We will see he'll do flashbacks to his past to where he has been doing stuff, but they make it seem like him getting married really helped his OCD and helped his whatever else is wrong with him, because he's afraid of milk. He's afraid of heights, and people are afraid of heights, and that's not an irrational fear, but there's a lot of irrational fears in his mind that he would consider irrational. He knows are irrational, but he still does it because he needs it. His brain needs it. His body needs it. It's like a drug. He needs to do these things. He needs to clean. He needs to make sure things are settled. And there are some moments that I noticed rewatching the show where the actor forgets and does certain things that, like, he may touch something dirty and not wipe his hands, but there's always a wipe. And it gets into, when I talk about Sharona, I'll get into Sharona. I love Sharona. I will never hate Sharona. You can never make me hate Sharona. She was on some business. She was doing her job. She was on some business. No one will make me hate Sharona ever in this lifetime. So sorry, not sorry. Icon. She always has, like, the tackiest outfits. They hated her. They hated her character. The writers hated Sharona. The person who was designing her stuff hated Sharona. But, like, she wore it good. She wore it good. It was terrible trash. She wore it well. I'm so sorry. But literally, let's get into this first episode, okay? Mr. Monk Meets the Candidate. So we start the show with Monk on the job. He is inside a room. We see how he interacts with a crime scene. He walks around it like he's analyzing it like he's a robot. He's looking around. People don't understand his logic. Everyone's just sitting there looking at him. Like, the police officers are staring at him while he's doing what he needs to do. And the kind of the funniest thing about this scene is that the dead body's still on the floor. Like, blood's everywhere. Like, she's just there. And nine people or 10 people are just crumped up in this tiny space while he's walking around. Like, he's in there, and like, Monk is like, the timing, like, when I'm telling you Tony Shalhoub, no one's talking about getting Tony Shalhoub on a TV show when he's got such range and he works so well. And Tony Shalhoub has such range. Y'all do not promote Tony Shalhoub enough. He was in Men in Black. He was in Spy Kids. Tony Shalhoub is really good. I was trying to watch this Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or what, Mabley. I don't know what that crap was. I watched 2 episodes and I was done. I didn't see Tony Shalhoub. I'm like, where is this man? I only came here to watch Tony Shalhoub. Where is he? Y'all need to get Tony Shalhoub on something. I don't care if you don't think he's got the look. You guys raise up these bum scum losers. Ken just won an award. Are you serious? He's a bum scum loser that doesn't deserve anything. And Tony Shalhoub is sitting here that deserves the world, and you guys are sitting here. I'm done tugging on his efforts. I'm done tugging on his, like, greatness. He's so great. Like, honestly, Tony Shalhoub is the greatest, one of the great, like, top 10 actors I've ever seen act. Like, it's crazy how he's not in everything. Back to Monk. So Monk is walking around the scene and he's just like, oh, the stove. And they're like, it's over there. And he's like, no, I think I left my stove on. So he's so funny. He's so good. Like, Tony Shalhoub is such a good actor. And then Sharona's like, if you don't, I checked it before we left. And he's like, did you turn the knob? And she's like, yes. He's like, the little knob. And she's like, bruh, I turned the knob. Could you stop? One of the crime scene investigator guys is like, so about this woman that's on the floor. So we think that it was a robbery, a burglary gone sour. She walked in and she surprised him. Monk says in his greatness and spectacular big brain was like, nah, this ain't no burglary. He tried to make it look like one. But this guy he literally says this guy was cold as ice. He wore slippers to not cause tracks in the house. And he's like, not something your local crackhead would do. Like, what? Where did that even come from? Who said it was going to be a crackhead? Like, it could be a burglary for anything. Why would it be a crackhead? But it's hilarious that he said that in the first 1 minute of the show even being on. And you see his tweaks and quirks come out. He keeps having to touch something because that's his issue he's got. And his nurse, Sharona, like I said, I will always defend Sharona. Morning, noon, and night. We can fight about Sharona. I like Sharona better than Natalie Teeger. Natalie Teeger is what happens when a woman's too strong and you have to bring in a weak woman. Natalie Teeger is a weak woman. I'm telling you that right now. For future reference, if you watch this show, Sharona is better than Natalie Teeger. Natalie will always be second fiddle. She's like, okay, you've seen Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now this is a story all about how I'm booked under. Like, literally, remember Aunt Viv, dark-skinned black woman, master. She is a dancer. She is an actress. She is awesome. She taught people. She is a very highly educated, dark-skinned black woman. Remember when she was iced out of Hollywood? Because of Will Smith, because of a man. Remember when that happened? And then to punish her and her legacy, they switched her out with just some bum scum drum woman off of the street and was like, come on, woman. Come on, and got her, and she was light-skinned, like, just ruined her legacy, destroyed her legacy. Like, it's insane how y'all couldn't have just found a dark-skinned black woman to replace her. Like, that is insane. Oh, she was the best woman for the job. No, she was not, because everyone hated that Viv. Everyone hated that fake Viv. That's what happened to basically Sharona. Basically, I don't know what really truly happened, whether it was another boyfriend telling the woman, oh, you deserve way more money, even though you were getting a decent amount of money. Literally, that happened. Three's Company. Let's take it back to, come on, knock on our door, come on, knock on our door. Literally, like, what's her face? The girl that was Dipsy in Blonde. Like, her husband, boyfriend, whoever was talking about, you need to make more money than everybody here, and ruined her contract and had her fired. So I don't know what happened with Sharona. I don't know what happened with Sharona. Please let me know in the comments if you know what happened to Sharona. All I know is it reeks of misogyny. It just reeks of misogyny for her to have left and then have Natalie Teeger, this submissive, this spineless. I cannot stand Natalie. Every decision she made, and then how she's raising her daughter, it is unbelievably sick. Unbelievably sick. But back to the show. All right. So Sharona has to snap Monk out of whatever he's doing. He's literally like stuck on stupid. And the music plays, like the boom, 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 like the music of the show. Everything is fantastic. Music, set design, costume design. Like I said, they hated Sharona, the way that they had her dressed. They hated her in every aspect of the word hate. They hated Sharona. I'm telling you right now. And she worked with everything she had. She was a great actress. And I'm glad that she was in this show for as long as she was. But I hate the fact that they replaced her with some weak-willed character, because I do not hate on the actresses or actors unless there is a reason to. And so far, I have no reason to hate them, so I'm not going to. When I talk about these characters, I'm talking about the characters. I do not expect you to go after any of the actors or actresses I discuss. And I'm letting you know right now that that's not condoned. Unless there's something like if they're racist, freaking... like, let them know that. Let them know that you're not going to support them because they're racist. If they're homophobic, if they're transphobic, honestly. But as far as I know, all these actors and actresses are safe from that sort of criticism. I have no idea. So this scene lets you know how Monk works, how Monk interacts with the crime scene. He literally notices the smallest things. Like, this guy smoked and waited for this woman for almost over an hour or so because he can still smell the smoke on the curtains. The superpower that Monk has does not seem so far-fetched. Like, I'm gonna go on this small rant real quick. I'm gonna let you know right now, Monk's a jerk. Monk's a jerk. That is his redeeming quality, is the fact that he is good at crime scene investigation, okay? He's good at his job. But he's a jerk. He's a loser. Aside from all the things that he has medically wrong with him, has nothing to do with that. He is just a loser jerk who is a jerk to his brother. He was a jerk to Natalie. He's a jerk to Sharona. He's a jerk to every single person around him. Legitimately, he is also a misogynist, but he loves his wife to no end. He never says anything bad about his wife. But I still don't like when men are like, well, this woman's okay, but all the rest of you females are like, honestly, I'm not here for that. I'm not here for that. I don't care if you love your wife to death or not, because if you treat every other woman like pure trash, you don't respect her. And I'm not asking you to suck somebody's ovaries. I'm just asking you to be respectful. And he's not. But what I am going to say is the difference between the Mary Sue-ness of Dr. House, who it's one of those shows that I don't think I'll ever talk about unless I talk about how bad it is. And people love that show to no end. I'm probably going to get more hate for what I have to say about House than what I've said about any anime ever. And that is scary. That's a scary gray area, because I have already gotten flack for hating Black Clover. I will never watch that crap. People were upset that I didn't like Seven Deadly Sins, even though there's a lot wrong with that. If you want to know my opinion about those two, link will be in the description to my anime playlist where you can be upset, because a lot of people were. But House is a Mary Sue. Like I said, it's against my religion to believe in Mary Sue. So in my eyes, they don't exist anywhere. These characters are merely main characters, and these incel loser scumbags just don't want to see a woman character do anything other than die. That's what they want. They want them to die. They want them to be plot devices for men so that these men can have something and they have a life. They want women to die. They want these women characters to die. They don't want them to exist. They want them to be like Nezuko, put in a box until she's useful, and then be pat on the head and then go back to her box. That's what they want for every woman character ever. And if not, if she kisses one guy and she has another guy on the side, she's just a Mary Sue. Oh my gosh, everyone likes you too much. If she knocks out one guy, even though there's magic everywhere and women can't possibly be good enough to be that guy, Mary Sue, that's what you call a woman who does anything other than die. That is it. There's no such thing as a Mary Sue. And now that we got that out of the way, I'm going to use your logic and say, well, if there's a Mary Sue in the world, then House is definitely a Mary Sue. The reason why it makes more sense for Tony Shalhoub, Adrian Monk, to have these quote unquote superpowers is because he actually explains he's not just like, oh, it's just a theory. It's just a game theory. He does not just say that he knows these things like House does. Like, oh yeah, House was, he went to, I don't care, whatever. Everything he knows, he just can smell somebody and be like, yep, you've got cancer. Like, honestly, I can't. But Monk actually explains how he knows these things. Like, between House and Monk every day, I ride with Monk. My homies F with Monk, bro. Like, honestly, like, that's the end of the rant. We're going back to the show. So he can smell the cigarettes on the curtains. And that's how he knew that that guy was sitting there waiting for this girl at her house. And he legitimately smells the curtains and says menthols. He knows exactly what brand of cigarette. And he said possibly Newports. Like, the people were like, you know what if she smoked? How about that? How about them apples? Adrian Monk. And he's like, no, she's religious. And he points to the stuff, like, he explains why every episode. I'm telling you right now, it's so gratifying to know that people that wrote this show put in enough effort to, like, just explain how he knows these things. It's not magic. It's not a superpower that comes out of nowhere. It's not something that's unearthly and unworldly. He uses deductive reasoning. He looks around. He actually looks at things that no one looks at. He actually is intelligent. I hate House, and he's a Mary Sue who doesn't deserve all the accolades he gets. But even House and Adrian Monk, both idiot jerks. They're both jerks, scumbag misogynists. And you're not going to find them on the most hated characters of TV. Like you're going to see Skylar from Breaking Bad. I'm telling you right now, if I ever talk about Breaking Bad, I'm going to talk about how terrible it is and how terrible the fandom is. I'm not even going to get into it. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to leave it at god dang that. Okay? Y'all misinterpreted that guy, Walter White. You think that he's your daddy. You think that he's the best man since sliced bread. but he's not going to be on the most hated. You just think because this woman did not go with this man because he's making meth or whatever, he's making whatever he's making. Like, I told you, I'm not going to get into this. What I'm going to say is I hate that show and I hate y'all for liking it. End of discussion about that. And I will not be elaborating. You can talk about it in the comments and it will never be seen by my eyes. But let's get back to the story. So he says she's religious, the certain particular religion, don't remember. But he's like, yeah, they don't smoke. And he knows that information because he's very intelligent. So as he's explaining that, oh, this guy might be tall. This guy went on the computer. I don't know what he was looking for, but he stuck around. He was looking for something. And as he's trying to do his job, he's like, keeps talking about how his oven might be on. And he keeps going to Sharona talking about, are you sure that the oven's not on at my house? Da, 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 da. What if something happens? He's a hypochondriac and he's got OCD. That's basically his situation. Extremely extreme. Like, it's not, like I said, it's not just let me wash my hands. Like, it's very extreme. So that's just a warning if y'all, like, it's a warning to watch this show. Sometimes it gets serious. It gets real. Sometimes it's made for laughs. That's one reason why a lot of people might have an issue with this show. Because sometimes it's played for a joke when it's actually a very serious illness. But in Monk's personality, he's very inconsiderate. He's a jerk. And Sharona always gave it right back to him. He's her boss, and he doesn't have a right to talk to her the way he does. So she talks to him in the old kind of way. And he's like, would you go back to my house? Would you drive, like, all the way back to the city? They're like hours out. They're literally, like I said, he is a personal private detective who is hired by people. Sometimes the police hire him for something. Sometimes other people do it on the streets. But his main thing is he's a private detective. But she's like, I'm not going to drive back over there. Like, honestly, he's like, but that would be great. That'd be nice. Like, he's very inconsiderate. Like, he's a very inconsiderate man. And Sharona takes him to the corner to scold him. Like the little boy baby he is. Like, even if he didn't have these afflictions, he would still be a jerk who would be inconsiderate of people around him. It's like a give and take. He is a very perfect character in the sense of he has a lot of flaws. He's a person and he has a lot of good to him. That's really great. And it's hard to see any character like that nowadays because writers are so afraid of making a Mary Sue that they just make a bad girl character constantly. When like I said, there's no such thing as Mary Sue. And you just can't write men either. Terrible. Sorry. Look at Monk and then write a character like Monk. How about that? Do something better. But basically what happens next is she's scolding him in the corner and then the people who are watching, like he's literally at his job right now. He's literally at his job. And they're like, who is that? And they're like, oh, that's his nurse. He can't go anywhere without her. Da, da, da. And then this is basically the exposition of the story that I've already explained to you. He's a private consultant for the police. And he's a private detective for whoever wants to hire him aside from the police. And she's like explaining the situation and he's talking about, he's doing his tics. He, like I said, it's played for laughs, but it's a serious illness. This is just a heightened version of it because it's on TV. You can't have something small that won't be able to be seen on a screen. Like, it's got to be exaggerated. So basically, she scolds him while they're watching over them, and everyone in the background, they're just explaining, yeah, something happened to his wife, da-da-da-da, now he's a nutcase, and it's just stuff like that. Like, that's basically the scene. And the people, when he's done, and they're like, all right, break, after they have their little football huddle, literally, they're like, how did you know that they were on the computer, the killer? And he's like, isn't it obvious? They freaking, like, and he's pompous now because Sharona just gassed him up, talking about you're brilliant. And he is brilliant, but he needs to stop treating people with disrespect or he's going to get slapped. But anyway, he says, isn't it obvious? There's no fingerprints on the computer, not even hers. He sweeped it off, you idiot. Like, basically, like, it's so funny. This show is so funny. And he's like, how'd you know he was tall then? And he's like, well, the chair is lowered all the way down to the ground. But why would it be lowered like that if it was for the woman because she's 5'4" and he's like 6 foot, da, da, da. Like he pieces things together. It's really nice. And he runs out because he's like, I smell gas. Even though if he smelled gas, it wouldn't be from his house. He has to go back home and check the oven. And they're like, oh, that's the famous Adrian Monk. And he's like, in the living flesh or something. It's like, if you call that living, like, it's really sad. Because, like I said, every episode he deals with having to live his life without his wife, who got killed by a car bomb that he thought was for him. And I'm not going to elaborate on that because you have to watch the show, because it literally, like, every season is like him doing side quests. And then there's going to be like 2 episodes dedicated to him trying to solve his wife's murder. And that's great. That's great. It's like a great stance. This is so great. It's so amazing because you know that that's what's going through his mind. So he goes home and you see his life. You see how he has to brush his teeth, how meticulous everything is. He's got 1 sock in each bag. He literally has to keep things separated. He's got like the same clothes for every day. And it's really cool because even though Sharona's clothes change, his clothes never change. And it's kind of like a TV show where like the characters never change clothes. And then we go to him to his first doctor's visit, his first shrink, I guess you would say, visit of the show, because he's been going to this man for years. But so he explains to his doctor that he is doing consulting, and that's good because he hasn't been the same since his wife died, and he hasn't been on the force since his wife died. And he said he's got a friend that called him in that is a 2nd lieutenant, and we'll get to know them shortly. Another jerk, loser, scumbag that's not going to be on no top worst most hated character list, even though he is one of the worst guys. Like literally, propaganda goes out the window with this guy, because if you put him on the front lines, like he's just like Stabler from SVU, like Law and Order SVU. Like these guys are not going to sell policing to anyone. Like those are the last people you want on your front lines if you want to make a good impression for police. I'm telling you that right now. So they talk. His doctor, he's like, how do you feel? And he's like, it feels great to be back in the saddle, but it's like old times. And he's like, would you like to go back to being on force? And I just love Tony Shalhoub in this moment, because it just shows, you can see the age of time on him. Not like he looks old. What I'm saying is the character. You can believe that Adrian Monk used to be on the force. You can tell that he went through something. You can tell, like, in his eyes, in his delivery. Tony Shalhoub is one of the greatest actors of all time. He is top 10. But in this scene, we get that basically he has to go to the doctor in order for the police to know that he's actually, like, able to go back to work, because he has all the inflictions he has. And he can't focus because there's a pillow out of place. The doctor knows this. He knows that he's going to look over there. He did that on purpose with the pillows to see if he was ready, because every episode he goes to the doctor, he's trying to make sure that he is stable enough to have a firearm. And like, the exposition does not feel like exposition. It just feels like a story is being told to you. This is such a good show. We are only 6 minutes or so in. It is such a good show. You have got to watch this show. Like, all the ranting about this and that, it doesn't even matter. Watch the show for yourself, okay? Whether I say it's great or terrible, watch the show. Whether you've heard anything about this show, like I said, I do warn you that if you do have the afflictions that they're claiming Monk has, you may feel offended by how much it gets played as a joke and the misogyny. But aside those things, like, it's a pretty marvelous show. But the doctor asks him, have you been having the same dreams? And then we ask, as the audience, what dreams? And then he says, well, Trudy and I were married for 7 years. He doesn't outright say what the dreams are about. He talks about his wife. And he's like, well, it would be weird if I never thought about her. And then he's like, you're testing me, because he's a very smart man. He knows that in order for him to get back on the force, he has to at least appear like he's okay, like he can function. So he's like, he calls the doctor on having the pillow misplaced. And he's like, you did that on purpose, didn't you? He's like, did I? He's being coy. He's like, you're testing me. And he's like, you can go fix the pillow if you want to. And he's like, nah. So he like stumbles over his words, and he's like saying a lot of nothing. And then he's like, okay, excuse me. And then he has to go fix the pillow. He has to. Like I said, it's like an extreme version of what would be in reality. And I don't know if there's ever someone, maybe there's an extreme case that's like Monk. But I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I don't have those afflictions. So I can't be offended for them. I can just be aware that it might be offensive and acknowledge it. And what the TV show Monk does a lot, and sometimes I think it stopped like the midway and then started kind of being like hiding the face of the killer. A lot of the times it will show you who the killer is but you have no evidence against this person. So you can't just be like, well, I know that's the killer. Monk actually has to figure out the motive. He has to put everything together. He has to put in the reason why they did it, how they did it, when they did it, like everything. So even if you know who did it, you can't just be like, arrest that person. You have to actually have the evidence. Monk has to actually have the evidence. So it's a cool show in the sense that it actually shows you, all right, this is the guy, but they've got to actually figure out why he did this, when he did this, how he did this. And it's really nice to see it. So we see the killer who is tall, like Monk said, and he's like going through this house that's being renovated or whatever. And then you see this dude with a gun and there's cheers from below. He wraps the gun with the blind thing, with the little thingies. And then at the bottom where he's looking, it's like the mayor. The mayor's like, oh, I will be a mayor and everything's going to be a mayor. And I'm the mayor, everybody, and vote me mayor. I'm mayor. And then there's this guy, he's like his right-hand man or whatever. He's like the coordinator. And the guy who's at the top is about to shoot somebody and he's aiming for the mayor. And then his wife, who, like I said, there's a lot of misogyny in this. A lot. Like every woman is either like some hussy that's cheating and just hussying around, or she's a victim who we never learn anything about. We just know that she's dead now, or she's Trudy. And the difference between someone that's just dead now and Trudy is not only is she dead, but she's like risen to sainthood. We don't know her flaws. We can't know her flaws. Because if we know one flaw of a woman, then there's all this rationale by the quote unquote fans. It's the reason why she died. Like, I'm not going to get into it, but just an example of that is Life is Strange. I did a video on Life is Strange. If you want to know my opinions about Life is Strange, I actually did a whole video that I did before Life is Strange 3 came out. And I may have some more things to say about it. I really have been like into Life is Strange. I might do separate videos for each actual video game, but Rachel Amber is an example of what I mean when I'm talking about either rising to sainthood or having issues make her death actually be rationalized by the people consuming the media. And Rachel Amber was this nothing of a nobody, did nothing. No one knew anything about her until Before the Storm. And like I said in that video, Before the Storm could have been so great and it would have been really nice. And it would have been interesting to actually be from Rachel Amber's perspective and maybe Chloe B there. But like when we figured out how she was, and because she wasn't 100% perfect, people were literally rationalizing the reason why she was killed. Like when a pedophile grabbed her and killed her. But anywho, that's basically the whole situation. This woman, you can tell that this woman is just like cheating on her husband, and like you can tell like they full out show you like most of these women on this show are like cheaters, or they have no anything and they die and you never know anything about them. Like legitimately or they're annoying. Like that's the other archetype you've got in this show. Like there's no good women except Trudy, and it's because she's dead and we don't know anything about her except what Adrian Monk says about her. And so the mayor's right-hand man guy, he's like, I'm your Moses, so I'm going to take you and your husband to the promised land, while this guy legitimately is in the window with a gun. He's just aiming it down and no one's looking up. Like, I look up sometimes. Sometimes I'm just looking up. Like, sometimes I'm like, what's going on over there? No one saw this guy. No one saw this dude. I know there's 10 billion. Like, the ending, this is a good show. This is a good show. This is a good episode. Because in the end, you have to get the guy. You have to get them. But literally, like I'm telling you right now, this second, every show will explain to you how these people did whatever they did. There's usually a rational explanation. But this one is a little wonky, and we can get to the end of it and we can discuss it. Maybe I'm just like, I don't know. All I know is we'll talk about it. But so this guy's in the window. He's about to shoot somebody. We don't know who yet, but he's aiming at this guy who's like, if you have me as mayor, then I'll be mayor, and I'm mayor, and blah, 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 blah. And she's like, I have seen Sacramento. Us hardly the promised land. Like, they make every woman insufferable so that guys can be like, oh, they're just insufferable. It's whatever. Like, there's no good women on the show. It's really insane. It's really insane. It's kind of like Jujutsu Kaisen, where everything's great except the women. Like, I'm not, like I said, I'm not even going to talk about that. I'm just taking that jab at Jujutsu Kaisen because I'm going to make a video, and I'm not going to argue with y'all about anime. I'm literally not. Like, I cannot argue with anime people. You can just smile and nod. That's all you got to do with anime people. But it's like, if you elect me, da 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 da, while this guy's like he's aiming down and no one sees him in the window. That's really interesting how no one sees this guy. He says, I'm gonna take y'all to the White House and all that. Like that guy with the thing in his ear, the right-hand man of the guy. And he's like, if you elect me, you're getting 2 mayors for the price of 1. And he's like, my wife Miranda, while this guy is in the window at the top of this high rise, aiming a gun down, he's about to get his wife in the line of fire. Here we go. His wife's coming up. Her name's Miranda. He's saying all the right things. He's like, I'm ready to walk the walk. Are you ready to walk the talk? I'm ready to walk with you. And everybody's like, and then like patriotic music plays and everybody's like everything's happy and everybody's like, yeah, woo, woo, woo. And this dude's aiming down a gun and he shoots and it appears, and that's all I'm going to say until later, that he was aiming for the mayor. So he shoots this guy's bodyguard and everybody's screaming like, even though they were screaming the same way. Everyone's screaming. He's shooting everywhere. And all the police are looking up at the sky because literally the dude just shot. He's like, over there. Oh my gosh. Over there in the sky. Way up high. That guy that said that he was just Moses, which is interesting because it's like, I called him Hispanic, but he might not be Hispanic. For all I know, he could be, I don't know. He could be Arabic. And that would be a little strange of them to put inside the script for him to say that he was their Moses. But it's whatever. He aims at where the gun was. All right. And this is where the thing is. This is where it's funny. This is where it's funny. Just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind where he's like, all right, there's tons of high rises and stuff everywhere. And he knows where that guy was. And the next scene shows Leland Sotomayor. Ted Levine. For those who know him, he also is a very good actor. He's got great range. And if you don't understand his range, watch Silence of the Lambs. Because I'm not even going to tell you who he is. I'm literally not, because you won't believe me if I did. Watch Silence of the Lambs from beginning to end. He's up in there. Ted Levine is a very good actor. But like I said, like he's Captain Leland Sotomayor. I talked about Welcome to Raccoon City, and there was this guy that looked like Leland Sotomayor. I was like, who is this? Who is this supposed to be? And this is Leland Sotomayor. For those who like have been here for as long as I've been making Resident Evil content, this is Leland Sotomayor. At like around the 10-minute mark, we meet Leland Sotomayor. And like I said, he is the last person you want on the front lines to be promoting like police people. Like he's like the anti-propaganda. Like if you want propaganda, do not have this man in your precinct, because he is like the most like corrupt, like it's crazy. It's crazy. Self-righteous piece of garbage, I think, ever in the history of TV show. How are you gonna have a wife and then hate your wife? Like, just get a divorce then. But oh wait, who's going to clean your socks? Huh? Who's gonna clean your toilets? Like that's basically where he's at with that. He doesn't want to get a divorce because he doesn't want someone to not take care of his happy home with his children. If he divorced his wife that he hates so much, battle axe. The crap that he says about her is terrible. Terrible. I hate Leland Sotomayor. And he's a jerk. And he's a jerk to Monk. And even though Monk's a jerk, the way he's a jerk to Monk is horrible, because he will use him and then throw him out and then say he's not good enough. It is crazy. But this is where we get introduced to Leland Sotomayor and Randy Disher. His name's Randy, but his full name is Randall. But they call him Randy because who wants to be called a Randall? Like, oh, you know who Randall is? Oh my goodness. I think if I'm not mistaken, what's it called? Monsters Inc., Monsters Incorporated. Randall is that dude from Monsters Incorporated, but whatever. So we get introduced to Captain Leland Sotomayor and Lieutenant Randy Disher. And one thing I will say about Randy Disher, they call him Disher. So if I say Disher, that's who I'm talking about. He looks like Gibby. I'm going to just say it out. I'm going to just say it flat out. I didn't know how to integrate this into the story, but I'm going to just say it right now. He looked like Gibby from iCarly. He looked like Gibby. He looked like Gibby. He literally looks like the father of Gibby. Like, if they wanted to get his father to come in and be like, hey, what's going on? Like, he looks just like him. Like, I'm telling you right now, like, a very skinny Gibby. Like, he looks like a skinny Gibby. Like, I wonder if he was ever told that. I wonder if they're even related. I have never looked it up. I'm going to look it up right now. Hold on. Well, I don't know. Okay, so Randy Disher is played by a man named Jason Gray Stanford. And Gibby from iCarly is played by a man named Noah Munch. Okay, it's M-U-N-C-K, okay? I don't know how to say that. I don't know. I have no idea, but they look very similar. That's all I know. That's all I know. And maybe they're related, maybe they're not. Maybe he's got his mom's last name, maybe he doesn't. Maybe they're not related at all. Maybe somebody made a mistake. Maybe somebody didn't remember that they had a son somewhere. But all I know is they look very similar, okay? Maybe they don't look similar next to each other, but in my eyeball, in my inner eyeball, I think they're related, okay? So let's just continue on. This is going to be a long video, bro. And ridiculous. I told you, this is such a misogynistic show. Like, Lieutenant, he can't even go outside. Like, so Leland Stottlemyre is like, oh, so what's going on? Are they blaming us? Disher's like, nah, not yet. We're just saying he'll not be silenced, he'll not be intimidated. He's like, okay, so he's going to blame us. And he's like, okay, so who's here with the press? And he's like, oh, the girl from Channel 6 or 3 or whatever. I don't know. And he's like, the pretty one? She's at her job. This is not a sex call. She does not have to be pretty for you, you idiot scumbag piece of trash. Go get a prostitute if you want a prostitute. She is at her job. She's at her job. She does not have to be pretty for you. She's at her job. You are ugly and hideous and no one likes you, Leland Stottlemyre. You are ugly. She does not have to be pretty. You are ugly. Anyway, stuff like that is like, how am I supposed to just sit there and be like, yep, this is fine, kicking my legs? Like, why does she have to be pretty? And why was that in the script? Why was that important? Oh, to show how Leland is bad. Okay, interesting. Okay, all right, fine. But what about all the rest of the times? We get that in this instance. I'm going to just continue. So it's not the pretty one that's going to interview him. So we're already like stepping into misogyny. Like, it's crazy. So they come in and he's like, oh my gosh, the guy didn't make it. So the bodyguard died. The bodyguard didn't make it. He died in the hospital. They have no idea who the killer is, and the forensic people haven't found anything yet. Mayor right now is like, we need Monk because you're not doing a good enough job. And he's like, oh, they always blame us when things aren't happening fast enough. I mean, duh, you're the one that is supposed to solve the case. How about do it faster? And yeah, I'm starting to notice there might be a little bit of propaganda in here. But like I said, if you thought that Leland Stottlemyre was the best and Randy Disher, the guy who never has any like clue, literally, like he's the butt of the joke almost every time. He has like ideas that have absolutely no foundation to it. He never solves the case. He's always like the Gibby. He's literally like Gibby. Like, I don't understand, but at least Gibby actually had a moment to shine. Like, I don't think Disher ever had a moment to shine. I think every time he was like the butt of the joke. He was like, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. Watch the show and let me know in the comments, or if you've watched it, let me know if you liked a Randy Disher moment. But they're basically like, why haven't you got this guy yet? Why haven't you made any arrests? What are you doing sitting on your thumbs? And he's like, we're trying as hard as we can. And like I said, Leland Stottlemyre, he's very pompous and self-righteous. He wants to get the job done any way possible. He doesn't care if he has the wrong person or not, and I'm letting you know that right now. He will arrest the wrong person and he won't care as long as it's a slam dunk case. He doesn't want to drag his feet because I guess he gets paid if he gets the guy, not how long he works, because he doesn't want to work hard, because every time Monk says, hey, this might not be the guy, he doesn't care. I'm telling you that right now, every single time. He's always like, I don't care. I need to get this guy in his cell so this can be over. We can move on to the next case. He does not care about people. He should not be a police officer. Like I said, if you thought that Leland Stottlemyre was the best front runner for propaganda, I would hate to see the best cop ever, because that man has to be Superman, because this dude is almost borderline the devil. I'm telling you that right now. Hates his wife, and they make her out to be so dipsy and so slow and so stupid. I hate that so much for her. I hate that so much. And then if I'm not mistaken, I can't even talk about it. Like I said, the show is just very misogynistic. It's very misogynistic. But Leland is upset that The actual mayor wants Monk on the case. He doesn't like Monk because he always shows him up. They pretend to make it seem like it's about how Monk has this disorder and it just affects him. But he really doesn't care as long as he gets what he wants out of Monk and he gets to throw him away afterwards. That happens consistently, at least in the first season, consistently. And Sharona and everyone who eventually works for Monk, like I said, Natalie comes in later, but Sharona works for him for the time being. And she's driving, and Monk doesn't like to drive. Monk doesn't like to use an airplane. Monk doesn't like to do anything like that. He just likes to be stagnant in the same place at all times, as long as it's a clean place. But she's like, oh, this is going to get you back on the force. And she's happy because he only pays her as much as he can afford to pay her. And he also has a doctor that he pays. So yeah, like he's a skinflint as well. He's a skinflint. Sharona's happy that he might be back on the force, but I'm not sure if you can have a private nurse follow you around when you're a cop. I don't think that's a cool thing. So I think maybe she's just happy to not have to deal with him anymore. I don't know. I don't know how that would work because, well, I can't spoil it, but so I don't know what she was expecting to do after. Like if she was just going to like part ways with him. But yeah, he's like, I already have a job. Remember, even though we just saw him in the thing, like really happy and excited. His face was really lighting up when he thought about going back on the force. But he's acting like he doesn't want it because he knows that he's not ready. And he complains that she's not driving good enough. And I don't know if that's just misogyny or just the fact that it's raining and she's just trying to get to where he needs to go because the mayor asked for him personally. And like I said, the script as well as the costume designers must have hated Sharona. They wanted to paint her as a harlot and slut as much as possible. And I'm letting you know that right now. So every outfit she has is very skinflint. And I don't mind. Like, I really don't mind. It's just a lot of the time it's inappropriate for the weather. And it makes no sense. Like, you can still look fashionable or unfashionable. Because like I said, her outfits are not like on fleek at all. But I like her style in the sense that it's Sharona's style. If I wore something, if I saw someone wearing something, I could be like, well, that's Sharona's style. Because she actually did have a style for the show. Whether it was her own personal style, whatever she came in, all I know is they made her wear the tightest, shortest things. It didn't make sense for the weather. And you can still have that style. You can wear leggings. You can do something different. But they wanted to show you that she is a harlot. So much so that there is an actual episode dedicated to, there's a lot of shows dedicated to her going on dates and stuff. And just when, like, why can't women go on dates without being called a harlot? Why can't women do anything? Like, why can't we do anything without being called a harlot? But like I said, the outfit, it would have been great if they just didn't have her wearing very short things in the weather that didn't make sense. It's raining now and she's wearing very, 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 very short skirt, whatever, doing. That she's always wearing very vibrant red. She's always wearing something that just like, they wanted everyone to know that she was, in their minds, a harlot. When she's literally just a woman living her life. She's a single mom. She's doing the best she can. To a son, actually. She's a single mom to a son. And that's the difference between her and Natalie. Natalie has a daughter. And you could say the way that she's very meek about raising her daughter just goes into the fact that she had a daughter. But daughters can be whatever. She's very unruly. She's very horrible. I don't like her daughter either. She's gross. She doesn't respect her mother. And I don't condone not respecting your mother when she's trying to help you, when she's actually doing the best she can, not when it's like, I'm not even getting into that because y'all can do whatever you want with your parents. But we're back here in the scene where Monk is in front of Lieutenant Disher and Leland Stottlemyre. Leland looks very upset to see Monk. He just doesn't like that Monk is better than him at his job. He was always stood up by him while he was in the force, so I think that's why he hates him. They never pointed that out, and maybe they do in one episode. Maybe they do it in one episode, but they never really point out that he's jealous of Monk. I just know he is. There's a lot of evidence pointing towards him being jealous of Monk. And what I don't like is that this guy who is jealous of Monk, like, basically holds his life in his hands. Monk very much so wants to get back on the force. Everyone knows that, from Sharona to Dr. Kroger, which is his doctor, which is funny because even his name's Kroger, right? Okay. Walk with me here. Walk with me, yeah. Walk with me. So his name's Kroger. The guy kind of reminds me of Dr. Loomis, who was the guy from Halloween, who was the doctor of Michael Myers, who is in the same Fight Night universe situation, like of scary movie monsters as Freddy Krueger, who is Freddy Krueger, Kroger connected. Anyway, back to it. I don't like that this guy is talking about, oh, Dr. Kroger says you're getting out more. Like, he's going to the person who is who's in charge of having Monk back on the force, and he's actually getting these tidbits. So he grabs his hand and shakes it, and he knows that he doesn't like that. He could have just said hello. He did not have to shake his hand. He grabs his hand. He does power trips on Monk all the time, and I hate that. And Leland is really a jerk for doing that, because he knows that he has an affliction, and he does it on purpose because he sees him squirm and he likes it. But something that's very consistent is the fact that he always needs wipes after he touches stuff, for the most part. Like I said, if you look close enough, sometimes he'll touch stuff and he doesn't get a wipe. But there's always, people thought that Game of Thrones had a problem with the inconsistencies. You watch any show hard enough and you will see that it was a different day, and it's everything's different. Stuff on the plate looks different. Somebody's hair's flipped a certain way. Somebody's hand isn't the way it's supposed to be. And there's somebody on set that's their job to make sure that stuff like that is good. And it just doesn't always work. We're human. We're not going to be great. And even if we did AI was made by humans. It's not going to be great either. So I don't support AI art. I don't support AI anything. Like, I just don't like consuming. It's hard to not, because there's a lot of AI things that we can't stop ourselves from consuming. Like, our phone is AI. Like, it does stuff. It remembers what we do. It remembers the stuff. Like, we'll see ads that we like because we bought that, and it's in our phone. And regardless, I'm back to the story. This is going to be a long one. We're at the hour mark right now as I'm saying stuff. So I'm going to try to be a little faster, because right now, as I've only talked about 12 minutes of an hour and 18-minute show. So I'm going to be getting a little faster. I'm going to be skipping over a few things. So if you really want to watch the show, please, I recommend you watch it. It's on Peacock. It's on Prime Video. Go find it somewhere. Watch it. I'm going to keep going, but it's going to be a little faster. I'm not going to break it down as much because like I said, we just hit an hour and I'm like, what? So basically, Leland is telling Monk, oh, you're a civilian now. Don't think you're so good. You're only here because the mayor thinks you can walk on water, but you're a civilian. You can only observe. You can't do this and that. Like, he's throwing his penis around on Monk. Like, it's really uncomfortable to watch, because he's just so jealous of him. And the reason why it's annoying is because he literally is the one that took his badge. He's the one that didn't think he was fit enough to have a firearm. He said, when I took your badge years ago, wanted nothing more than to give it back. I don't believe that. And Monk doesn't believe it either. He said, but you're obviously not ready. He's like, is that the uniform talking? He's like, I am the uniform, Monk. Like, he's so disgusting. And Monk goes back with him. And he's like, yes, sir. Oh my goodness. And then he starts talking about his wife. He's like, I'm sure you and Karen will work things out. And he's like, what you say? He's like, oh, you and your wife. You're having some problems, aren't you? He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, we're fine. We're 100%. He's like, oh, my mistake. Okay. He basically just threw his penis right back at him. He went and he's like, come here. He's like, how'd you know that we were having problems? And he's like, you missed a spot shaving? And she would have caught that. And he's like, she always ties your neck. I'm really not going faster. I guess I'm not going to go faster because I just really like this show. So I like talking about everything. Everything gives context to everything. If I miss something or if I skip over something, some things may not make sense. But this just sets the foundation. The foundation is that we got in literally 2 minutes that I've explained in like 30 minutes is Leland Stottlemyre is jealous of Monk. He is the one that removed his badge ever so years ago. And now he's got to work with him because he is like the big kahuna that he has to go through in order to get jobs for the most part, because he's working with the police still. He's a consultant, private investigator situation. And Monk was basically dragging him for filth, talking about, all the things that his wife would have helped him with. She helps him with his tie, and his tie's not done right. And he was like, send her some roses or something. Like, get with it, man. You piece of trash. And if Monk is calling you a piece of trash, like, he is misogynistic to the T. Like, I am not so certain that he didn't treat Shruti like a little bit of trash, because he is just very misogynistic. Like, don't tell me he's a good man. If that's a good man, like, I hate to see a bad man. But Leland swung his penis around and Monk swung his back. And he keeps telling Monk, when we get in there, you don't say anything. Like, he has such a power trip. I can't stand Leland Stottlemyre. You might hear me eating because I'm eating a breakfast chicken sandwich biscuit thing. So, basically, they get in there and the campaign's still running because this guy's trying to run for mayor. So the campaign guy is like, oh, speaking of campaign, like, oh my gosh, Queenmaker is such a good show. I recommend it. It's on Netflix. I was going to do my Netflix picks and bricks, but I just haven't had the time. Like, I just, like, that's going to be a big video. So this is going to be a big video. It's going to be like over an hour, and I have to condense it a lot. So Queenmaker's really good. Watch it on Netflix. It's a good show. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, the campaign person is like, we're not going to stop. We're not going to slow down. And Disher's like, man, just don't tell everybody where you're going and stop doing so many tours. We're trying to protect you because someone just got killed on your campaign thing. Like, honestly, as of right now, they still think that the mayor was the one that they were going after. They're asking them, hey, who do you think would want to hurt you? And it's just like, just a regular scumbum crap to ask. Like, oh, who would want to hurt you? Who do you think? Like, what is your job, bro? What is your job? What is your job, bro? Like, so Monk is playing with the board because he's got a problem. He grabs all of the board things that they were doing. They put those things on the board to show, like, what's going on with the campaign, and he just moves them a certain way so that they're even. And he's like, I'll put them back the exact same way I found it. And he does because he's really good at stuff like that. But so skipping few stuff. We're just skipping through now. Monk goes to where they learned that the guy was aiming from the room. So he sees he used the drawstring to steady his shot. He said the Green Berets do that. So he knows a lot. Like, he knows a lot of stuff. Like, there's a lot of information that has in his mind to back up what he's saying. He basically knows that this person's trained. So basically, the same person who killed that woman that was in the beginning is the same person who shot the gun, because the guy was really tall. He asks Leland to get up against the wall. And it's another one of those things, like, guys, the myth of women not liking you because you're short. They don't like you because you're ugly, or they don't like you because you're not fun to be around. They don't like you because you don't share their interests. It's okay to not like someone. Every woman does not have to like you, or else there's something wrong with a woman, or there's something wrong with you. You could just not be compatible. So how about you deal with that and accept that in your life? Whoever needs to hear that. But this is funny because Leland goes up against the wall and pretends to be the shooter, and he does this a lot. Monk makes people act out what happened so that he can see what possibly happened in that moment. And he's like, how tall are you? He's like 6 foot. He's a lie, because the guy who is the killer, like, his thing where the drawstring was lined up for the gun is way higher than his head. So it's like, he's lying. He's like maybe 5'11". He's like, I don't care what you are, but this guy was like 6'4". He's taller. And it's just like, it's like a jab, because it's like, guys act like saying height is like everything that y'all say about women, when for years and years and years you've been talking about your breasts are too big, your breasts are too small, your face is ugly, and then when they put makeup on, oh, I can't believe you wear makeup, oh, I don't like. There's so many things that you've said to women that it doesn't even make sense how you guys can be so ludicrous about height, when, like I said, it's a myth. Women will be with you if you're ugly, fat, tall, short, skinny. They will be with you because you have groomed women into having no value within themselves, thinking that there's no value within themselves, and their value is determined on if they have a man before 40 years old. And that was y'all's fault. But anyway, he realizes that it's the same person. Guy in the beginning is the same person who killed the bodyguard. So I'm going to give Leland a bone here. Here and here only. He doesn't want Monk here. He didn't ask for Monk to be here. He just wanted to complain and whine about how he doesn't have any leads, until he just finds the first person that's walking by so he can arrest them and get his money. That's what Leland wants. But instead, we've got Monk that'll actually do a thorough job and get the correct person. So he tells Leland, this guy is the same person. He's like, oh, you think he's the same guy because he's tall? And Monk's like, all right, so do you know the percentage of how many men are over 6'4" or 6'3"? He's like, I don't know. I don't give a fuck. And he's like, well, it's less than 0.5. So he's like, it's kind of hard for us to think this is a different person. Disher's like, oh, that's a different MO. It's not the same. It doesn't make any sense. Why would he be the same person? And he's like, it's the same person because it's unlikely that another person's going to be just as tall as him, because this guy's freakishly tall or whatever. And that's another thing. Like, everyone thinks that there's a lot of guys out there that are super, super tall. Like, there are not. Like, everybody's around the same height or smaller. Like I said, in America. I don't know about, like, the Philippines. Like, I don't know about everywhere else. I just know about America, okay? But the whole thing, what I'm getting at is Leland is like, oh, you think that just because the cord is twisted that this is the same person? No, he literally told you and explained why he thought it was the same person. You're just not listening, you stupid idiot. Go to your wife that you married and you said I do, and people can grow apart. That's amazing. Then stop wasting her goddamn time so she can find happiness, you piece of trash. Anyway, he's getting upset at Monk for actually taking time and trying to find the killer rather than going to the street and finding the first person on the street to say you're arrested. Literally, like, there's an episode where he just does that, like, honestly. And he was like, he wore slippers, and he's just explaining what happened. He soaks Newports, and he's sitting there. Leland's laughing because he's like, oh, this isn't police work. This is trash. Like, okay, so you're telling me your police work, where you just find the first person on the street and then put them in handcuffs and say, we've got the guy, now let's end this so that you can stop having someone breathe down your neck because you're not doing your job, because you never do your job. Like I said, like, it's really hard to think of this show as propaganda at all. There could be a case made. Like, I'm not going to be one of those people that, like, well, I'm a Southern woman, I like to drive myself. I'm not going to be that person and just, like, disregard an argument against this show for propaganda or whatever. I'm just saying that Leland Stottlemyre is not the poster boy that you want to be putting up there if you want people to like cops, is what I'm saying. Because he is a piece of... So basically, Monk looks out the window real quick and he starts fainting because he, like I said, he's afraid of heights and a lot of other things. But now, because he had a little spell, it disregards everything he says in the eyes of Leland Stottlemyre. He doesn't believe him. He doesn't believe that. But mind you, over the course of the show, Leland will call Monk in for something he can't solve himself because he's an idiot. I think there's like one case out of... Like I said, how many episodes per season? 16? Literally. That he's actually solved the case by himself, for the most part. For the least part, actually. I think he just, like, pieced a little piece together, and then he was like, yeah, I solved the case. He will call Monk in and then talk about, I don't believe you. Don't call me in if you're not going to believe every word I say. Don't call somebody to fix your refrigerator and then say, that's not how you fix a refrigerator. Then don't call someone. Do it yourself. Like, in all seriousness, why is he calling Monk every episode only for him to say, I don't believe that. I'm gonna do what I want. It's cheaper to just not call Monk. But whatever. Like I said, this is the only time I'm gonna give him grace because he didn't call him this time. Every other time he does. So Monk and Sharona go to the campaign hall where all this mayor stuff's at because, like I said, they're still trying to investigate who this killer is, because they think that he might be going after the mayor. And they go to the hall to see if the first woman that was killed in the very beginning of the episode has any relation to the campaign, and they come up with nothing. So they go to the bodyguard's funeral, and they're sitting up in the pews, like the top pews, like, you know that meme where people are aiming at each other in a mosque or something, they're like in some church, and then there's someone sitting behind them, and then there's someone sitting behind them, and then there's someone sitting in the high pews. That's what it looks like. Like I said, they make every girl seem very insufferable. There's not a girl that, like, either sainthood or demon. There is nothing in between. They can't be regular people. They cannot be. It's impossible to make a woman regular. They make the wife of the candidate, the mayor candidate, like, act like she doesn't want to be there. Like, she could be doing something else better. They got her drinking alcohol and stuff. Like, it's just like... it's just, like, ridiculous. It's just so tiring. It's just, like, do better, like, write better, just be better, honestly. But Monk starts flipping out because he can't find his keys, and then he finds them, and then he literally just flicks them onto the dead body. Like, oh my gosh. And the reason why he was freaking out because it was Trudy's. So he has to grab it now. And so he plays games with the dead body in front of everybody. And the mayor doesn't care. Or the candidate for mayor doesn't care. He's like, I thought I could raise the dead. I was going to use that as my slogan. And that's a playful jerkiness to where no one's going to put him on the list for most hated TV character of all time for doing that, even though that's kind of callous of... that man just took a bullet for you. Under your assumption, you think that he took a bullet for you. And the wife is going to be more crass and less fun-loving. And there's the woman, like I said, that was killed in the beginning is connected to this killing. So Monk has her face and he's just asking everybody, do you know this person? Mayor's like, should I? I don't know. And then his wife is like, no, I don't know anybody by that name, but I know that if my husband becomes mayor, you will never work in this town again. And then her handler, or the mayor's handler, grabs a hold of her, and it's clear that they have an affair going on. It's very clear. And so he asks Sharona if she's registered to vote, and she's like, no, it only encourages them. Girl, I'm gonna let you guys know right now, if you can register to vote and vote, please, for the love of everything that is holy, vote. I really don't understand the whole not voting thing. I feel like women and Black people and every single ethnicity in the United States has worked really hard to get the right to vote. And for you to just sit there talking about, like, it's very luxurious for a white woman to talk about how she doesn't feel like voting because no matter what, she's going to be on top. And that is the end of the discussion. I'm not talking about it anymore. But so Monk and Sharona start talking about how much that guy's worth. And it's like a lot of money. And he's like, that's a lot of motive. And she's like, it is. And he starts focusing in on his wife, thinking the same thing that I told you, that she's having an affair and she doesn't care about her husband. She just cares about his money and his wealth and power. And that's very interesting how that's always the tired storyline. So tiring, like I said. Monk gets back to the precinct and he's like, you couldn't have just bought another keychain? Because it got back to him that he disturbed the body while they were trying to put it to rest because he had to grab the keychain. And it's irreplaceable because Trudy gave it to him. So he shouldn't be flinging it places. But whatever. Turns out the bullets that they dug up out of that man exploded on impact, so they couldn't trace it. But one of them was intact, and it was from a British rifle or whatever, something that military people or mercenaries use. So now they're looking for someone who bought that stuff within the time, which anyone could have bought anything at any time. So I don't even know why they're doing that, but whatever. Trust the system. Let's see how the system works against Adrian Monk. So Monk keeps saying, hey, could you look up this woman? Could you look up this woman, the woman that died in the beginning of the episode? And Leland Stottlemyre is upset because he is literally in a loveless marriage that he put himself in, that he's remaining in so that he has a free caretaker for his children that he begetted and he never sees anyway. He never sees his kid. Mind you, there's an episode that even shows how much his kids hate him because he never sees his kids ever. But he says, oh no, the cases don't overlap. Monk, she was behind on his rent. This man has all the money in the world. And da-da-da-da. It's like, girl, could you stop dragging people for her? Like, why'd you drag her for not having rent, bro? She's dead already, bro. Like, Leland Stottlemyre need to get caught outside for real. Like, someone need to catch that boy outside for real. Like, honestly. But he's basically said that they don't overlap, so stop talking about it, let it go. And I'm like, bro, his job is to do stuff. Like, let him do what he need to do. Like I said, I'm only going to give Leland Stottlemyre this singular grace. The fact that he did not call Monk, but he calls Monk every other time. And when he does, Monk tells him, this is the dude. This is how it happens. And he's like, no, it wasn't. No, it isn't. Why are you in my face? Because you called him, you scum piece of garbage idiot. Because you called him. Why are you not listening to him? And he didn't call him this time, but he's still like correct all the time. Like he literally proved to him that he's been correct a lot of the time, and he still doesn't listen to him. It makes no logical sense. And you could be like, oh, it's just that's how it always has to go. It's a TV show. You could throw up on those words. I don't even care. You could gag on those words. I don't care. It's still annoying every time. And so they are not going to let it go. Monk is going to go harass the mayor candidate's wife while she's reading to children because, of course, when you want to make a villain, you must make them do things that are not villainous so that when their villainy is revealed, it's like, and you were reading to children? It's whatever. Anyway, so she's reading to kids and he's in the group and they're all just sitting there. There's cameras everywhere because she's, of course, a part of the campaign. That man is literally using his wife as well to get points, get some votes for being mayor. And the kids are coughing and gross. And this is a really funny scene because kids are so sick and gross and nasty. And like, there's like a kid that like eats his own booger and Monk just freaks out. But like, I would freak out too. Like, that's not something that is just like something that is Monk worthy. It's literally like, that's sick. So after that display, she sits there like, let's get this over with. I gotta go somewhere. And he starts talking about it. They're all actually sitting down on these kid chairs. It's so funny. He asks her if she has any bank accounts in her own name. Like, what is that your business? Like, I will never fault a woman for having a bank account in her own name because men have for too long in history. It's proven in history. Don't believe me, it's in history. You can't argue. It's there. That men have used money to keep women in their clutches as servants and slaves. So I don't care if she has a bank account in her name. What does that matter, Monk? Anyway, So he asks how long has her and the candidate been married? 5 years. And he accuses her of having an affair with Jesse, that right-hand man I was telling you about. The left-hand man, I would say. The right-hand man is the guy that's could be Arabic, could be Hispanic, ambiguously brown. The left-hand man is Jesse, who she is having an affair with. And she's like, are you accusing me? And he's like, you guilty? Does the fit shoe? Wow. So he basically tells her she's full of crap, and she's like, all right, I'm out of here. And so the guy that was at the campaign center that he asked if that girl that was killed in the very first part of the episode was there, he says, I think I found something, which he could have said on the phone, but he's like, I gotta tell you in person. So he's like, I'll meet you at my house. He's like, I'm gonna be a little late. And then we see the guy who is ambiguously brown talking about, is that a personal call? Well, I have no idea what this guy is, because honestly, George Clooney was for a while pretending to be brown. So I have no idea. For all I know, this guy's probably not. But I don't know. I'm just letting you know that he looks ambiguously brown to me. But the campaign runner, that guy, the right-hand man that I was telling you about, because I told you there's the right-hand man and then there's the left-hand man. This is the right-hand man I'm talking about. The campaign runner is in the room with the guy who was a part of the campaign, and he's the one that told Monk he's got to tell him something, which he could have told him on the phone, but he didn't. And I had to tell you that because that guy's driving to Monk's house, listening to something very interesting on the radio. He gets stopped by supposedly a bum that's cleaning his window or whatever, and opens the window to give him money. And he busts him up against the wheel, and it's hilarious. And he steals his car in the middle of the day, and his car was found in just the creek. Literally in the creek. And the captain's there and Disher's there. Captain's always there with Disher. But he's like, oh, it's probably an accident, severe blunt trauma to the head. And he's like, okay, that's what it was, because I'm an idiot and I'm not going to look any further. And Monk wants to investigate, but he can't come down there because he's afraid. He's afraid of heights, and he's afraid of dirt, and he's afraid of grossness. So Sharona is screaming to the captain what questions he's got to ask him, because, well, he doesn't really want to talk to him as well at all, because he's already threatened him already, and they've already just had it out 3 times this episode. So I think Monk would have been doing that anyway. He would have just been asking Sharona to say something, but he could scream his name. Like I said, he's very inconsiderate anyway. He would be doing this regardless. It's not just because they're down there, because he could be screaming to him anyway. He just would rather, he's like a king. He acts like he's a king. Tony Shalhoub is the king, but Adrian Monk is not. He's asking what's in the car and what's inside his hat. He wasn't wearing a hat, even though he had a hat before. He put something in his hat before. That's why he asked where his hat was. And they ask him, why doesn't he come down there? And he's like, I'm not wearing my dirt shoes. And that's hilarious. The captain's getting upset. When is he not? Monk says it's not an accident. It wasn't a car accident. There's no skid marks on the road. He's like, the road's wet. He's like, you're not the only detective, Monk. I'm here. Da-da-da-da. And it's like, he is just insignificant. Leland Solomire is so incompetent, insignificant, and scum. Actor who plays him is a very good actor. He is so good, because he makes me hate this man. But guess what? Even though he's terrible and horrible, horrible husband, horrible father, terrible father. Terrible father. Let me say that one more time. Terrible father. Just because you bring home the bacon doesn't mean that you're a good father. That does not make a good father. A good father does not make. I don't know how I have to say that to you for you to get it through your thick Neanderthal skull. But you will never see Leland Solomire making top 10 most hated TV show characters. But you're going to see Skylar as number 1. You're going to see Skylar up there at the top. When there's rapists, there's pedophiles, there's evildoers, and they're people argued with me online about this, and I will never find sanity in an argument made for putting rapists and pedophiles below, which means less hated than just a woman who didn't want her husband cooking meth or whatever. Legitimately, when there are so many other worse characters in the entire universe. I hate Sheen more than I think I could have hated Skylar. I am so incentivized to watch Breaking Bad just for the sole purpose of clearing Skylar's name. And then Monk proceeds to tell Leland literally everything that we just saw happen. He said in his mind it was the most probable explanation as to how the car got into the creek. He said it was staged. Leland still protests and say it's an accident that happened and there's no killer. But Monk counters by saying exactly what we just saw. He is correct. Even though Monk has been correct almost every single time, maybe 3 times he's wrong out of, like I said, how many episodes? 16 times 7 and then plus 13, because one season was 13 episodes, I do believe, I think. 12 or 13, something like that. You do that quick maths in your head, and then 3 times out of all those episodes, Monk was wrong. And you get a very good ratio of successes to failures. Leland is still going to act like he knows better than Monk. So this is like one of many times Sharona goes on a date. So she leaves him and tells the officer to take him home because he can't drive. He's not able to drive. So today's chicken pot pie night. So he goes home. And it's funny because pot pie was in the first episode, season 1, episode 1 of Grimm, and it's in season 1, episode 1 of Monk. It's just funny. He went home to make chicken pot pie, and he's harassing Benji. Benji is Sharona's son that me and my boyfriend swear that every episode he's played by a different actor. I don't know, like it's a kid actor. And Sharona's like on her way out the door to be on the date, and she's like, "Who are you on the phone with?" And it's Monk asking him how to make the pot pie. She's talking about her life to this guy, and she could talk about anything, but she's talking about her job as the nurse to a private investigator who works on open cases with a strange guy. Like, literally, she just makes very poor decisions, and it's just the writer room. Like, it's the writing room. This isn't Sharona. This is some man that wrote her like this. Like, literally, that's why it's like, it's hard for me to take y'all seriously when you talk about examples of horrible characters, like you would say Skylar, when I still don't believe a lot of people I've seen that watch the show who are just normal people who are not incel scum, who don't have mom drama, mom problems, who was raised by their grandma, so they upset at their grandma and their mama, like who hates every woman in the world. People who don't act like that are like, why do you guys hate Skylar? It's literally a question to the normal people. If you're normal, you don't hate Skylar. If you are not normal, you hate Skylar, and you probably need to go to the doctor. But back to this. Sharona is talking to this dude, telling all his business. Like, who is this dude? But she's just talking about, oh, I hate this job. And he's like, why don't you quit? And she's like, well, it's a good job because I'm like freaking putting guys that are bad behind bars and I'm having adventures. And that's a good enough reason to in a job you don't like. But literally, she akins herself to Lois Lane because she's like fighting bad guys, which I'm not a comic book person. Please let me know about comic book stuff. Last time I checked, Lois Lane wasn't the Oracle to Batman. She wasn't like in the middle of things. She was kind of like just a reporter, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's Vicky Vale too. It's funny how Vicky Vale and Lois Lane like live in the same universe. They live in the same universe because Batman and Superman live in the same universe. But not like, she doesn't live in Gotham. Vicky Vale lives in Gotham. Lois Lane does not. She lives in Metropolis, but anyway, I only know as much as I know. I don't know everything. So please let me know, like, if Vicky Vale was actually, like, a part, like, an Oracle situation, like, actually knew what was going on. Because if I'm not mistaken, she's just some freaking reporter who was wherever she needed to be to get the story. And then she was at the Daily Prophet or wherever she worked. Like, let me know. I know that's from Harry Potter. Stop. Anyway, Monk is at home trying to make a pot pie, putting the peas in first like an amateur. So while Sharona's on her date, Monk is looking and watching the TV and sees that there's new footage that was released of the shooting, and he notices what happened. And not only does he disturb Sharona's date, but he goes in person. I thought he was going to call her. He literally walks up to her, like, inside the restaurant. The guy who she's on a date with literally is like, you can sit with us, and Monk's like, okay. And he's literally sitting at their date now, and it's really crazy. And so we get information on him, like he's like a attorney or whatever. He's like representing people, famous people or whatever. And Sharona is like just trying to like find love. Monk just comes out and says it. This man is lying to you. He is not a lawyer. He's not an attorney. He's not anything like that, because where he said he went to study doesn't have the program he said that he studied. So he's like, that's not possible. And Sharona's upset that and that's the other thing I hate that Sharona does. Like, if a guy's lying to me, let me know. Like, I'm not going to be one of those women that, like, ride or dies for someone who's lying to me. I'm going to get all the information, and then I'm going to be neutral till then. I'm not going to be for or against. Like, honestly, we got to, like, figure this out. It's my life. And Sharona is one of those women where she would rather not hear the full story. She would rather just be happy in ignorance. And Sharona's upset that he didn't let him lie to her. And that's one of those things, like, just let me fall into the river. And, oh, in order for me to help you, I got to punch you in your face. Like, it's always one of those ridiculous things where it's like help is hurting in every aspect. It's really annoying. I hate that. But she's running away and trying to get home because he ruined her date, even though that guy ruined their date by lying. And Sharona basically quits on the spot because she's like, I can't do this anymore. I guess she's been working with him since, I guess, Trudy died. And he goes home. He walks home because he can't drive. This is where we get the introduction to him focusing on his wife's murder. So he goes home and he just looks at all of the paper clippings and all of the evidence he's got so far. And he's still so far away from the answer. But it's so, like, it's so fun watching this show and seeing, like, every other episode, he gets a little bit more progress in between, like, all the side quest stories. So back at where they were deconstructing that car that got destroyed, they found the hat, and just like Monk said, inside the hat was the information he was going to show Monk before he got killed. And it was the woman's name. She was a part-time volunteer for the campaign. And she quit 2 months ago. That's why her name never came up. So Disher starts sucking him off from the back. Literally, like, sucking off Leland. So crazy. It's so crazy to see him, like, suck him off so much every episode. But it's not as bad as it is in this first episode. I think it gets a little better. Like, it's more like they're equals. But right now, like, his subordinate, he's really acting very subordinate to him. And he's like, oh, you're, like, Monk can't do the things you can do, sir. You're so good. And he's like, okay, thanks. Anyway, we need him here, so call him back. Because even though he's always right, he was right now, and now he's got to be eating that humble pie. He just, his mouth looked like he ate humble pie. Like, he just got that face that, like, the humble pie is in his mouth. Like, so the deputy mayor comes to Sharon's house because everybody's, like, trying to scramble and look for Monk because he can't be let alone by himself. And Benji opens the door and he's like, hey. And then he's just like, bro, get out of my face, mom. Something happened to Monk. Get this dude out of here. He's talking about like skateboarding. Like, so the city of San Francisco is begging, basically, Sharona to come back so that she can go find him and put him back on the leash so that they can solve this case because there's a murderer out there still. Killed 2 people right now. And she's like, the only way I come back is if I get one request, and no matter what, it's like Rumpelstiltskin style, you know what I mean? I was going to do Once Upon a Time this week, but I'm not. I'm going to do it next month probably. We'll see. Don't hold me to that because I have no idea, but I really wanted to do Once Upon a Time because I love Once Upon a Time season 1, okay? Season 1, that's it. Anything else past season 1 is garbage, okay? But whatever. Anywho. Rumpelstiltskin style, she's like, you gotta accept my request for anything one time. Get one request, like a genie, basically. But he's like, nah. She's like, bye. And she's like, okay, yeah, sure. And then she's like, all right, I'm gonna go find him. And because Sharona knows him so well, she finds him in front of Trudy's grave. He is in front of her grave playing the clarinet. Fun fact, Monk is pretty artsy and artistic when it comes to playing the clarinet. Squidward up in here. So Sharona tells him that she was right about the woman that got killed in the beginning of the episode. And she's like, how do you feel that you are right? And he's like, terrible. He's upset because it's still sad. There's 2 dead people right now, like, honestly. And they still don't know where he is or who he is or where he's going to go or what he's going to do next or why this is even happening. We're halfway through. Maybe actually a little more than halfway through. So turns out she volunteered for a while and then she just left. And she was part-time, so no one really cared. And I think it's horrible that people treat part-time people like trash. He keeps watching the film of the shooting, and he doesn't understand. And it's strange, too, because the mayor dips down and then the firearm goes off, making it seem like it's not him who he's after. So basically, she was a bookkeeper, and it's starting to come together as to why she was killed. The right-hand man that I told you was the campaign leader, not the left-hand man that the wife's having an affair with. I've been talking for 2 hours, but the campaign guy, they call him Gavin, so I'm going to call him Gavin if I remember. Gavin collected funds, and he wasn't charged, but no one wants to deal with him because apparently he likes to grab funds and run. So, of course, the bookkeeper would have known where the money went, or she would have started asking questions at the very least. So that explains her connection to the situation. Gavin also was the one who set up the campaign speech when he was shot at, when the mayor campaign guy was shot at, and his bodyguard was killed. But it looks as if the bodyguard was killed intentionally. He throws a can out because it's dented, and the funny thing about this is cans that are dented more likely have stuff within them that is breakage, offage type situation. So him not wanting a dented can is rational, by the way. So that's not something that was irrational. So Monk is walking and a car literally is chasing him down. And while he's doing his little quirks, literally, like, the car chases him down. A car is the easiest thing to get away from, honestly, especially in a city, bro. Just keep backing around. Like, all you gotta do is go back around. He gotta make a U-turn. Like, that's crazy. But he goes back to Sharona and is talking about, I got the moves like Jagger. I got the moves like Jagger. And they go back to the campaign because he's talking about, oh my goodness, I was running around. So they start talking to Gavin because they talk about the bookkeeper, and they're like, okay, I don't know why they go to the person they think is the person and then talk about everything they got. But he said that her boyfriend got a new job, so she left. And I don't know how you know all that about her. She was just a part-time person that worked there, but whatever. He's just like, oh, so you don't know who this person is really other than that? And he's like, oh, yeah, the car crash killed that guy. So sad. And he starts piecing together stuff that was ripped up, because there's this thing that a bunch of ripped up stuff, and he grabs it while Sharona is making small talk with him, and he's trying to ask him questions. He's like putting the shredded pieces of paper together to see what he ripped up. Monk gets kicked out by that guy because he starts noticing that he's messing with the papers that are shredded, and he's like, hey, they're shredded, so I don't really want you looking at them. They're confidential. He's like, y'all do your jobs and I'll do mine, basically. But he goes the long way of saying that. So they go back to that place where they originally were with the campaign, the mayor campaign guy. And he starts talking to that guy that is having an affair with his wife. So Jesse, or whatever that guy's name is, Monk talks to him, and he's like, how long have you worked for the guy? He's like, 9 years. I was the first person he hired. And he was like, oh, but he never made you partner. He's like, you don't see me complaining. And then he's like, see, you've been out of town. And he's like, oh, I went upstate. So he deduces that he's lying to him because he said he went to his cabin upstate or whatever. And he's like, that's not possible because your clock is set 2 hours ahead Central Time, meaning he went not. And he suspects that he was with the wife in Chicago because her itinerary said Chicago. And it's horrible that they can't even be two star-crossed lovers at this moment. He's like, whatever I say here can't leave this room, because he's like, I'm not about to be tried for murder. He's literally going to say all his cards on the table because he's like, I am not going to go down for murder. I'm telling you what I know. And what I know is I was with her, but I didn't even want her. I was with her. I didn't even know her. He apparently just used her as a plot device to get back at Warren, that guy who didn't make him. He literally was just talking about, oh, he didn't make you partner. He's like, I'm not mad about it. You just rolled around in the bed with his wife, even though she's not an object that you can just use to hurt him. She is a human being, and you need to stop putting your penis in people if you don't care about them. He's like, I just wanted to hurt him. I didn't want to kill him. So y'all barking up the wrong tree, and he leaves. So this guy is 6'5" tall. They figured out where this guy was. This guy that has been shooting and stabbing people. And Monk's like, I got lucky because he said like 6'4", and it was actually 6'5". So they come in, and it's the wrong person. And they say it's the wrong person because he's in a wheelchair. Turns out that guy was faking it. They didn't even try. They didn't even call him up for nothing. It's crazy. So turns out, plot twist, he's not in a wheelchair because Monk realizes that he looked at his shoes and they're scuffed up like he was using them a lot. He looks at Leland's shoes before he tells him what he was thinking. Leland wastes no time setting fire to Monk about his shoes being scuffed up because he actually uses them. Like, come on now. Like, he kicks people while they're down. I hate Leland Stallmark. I can't stand him. But now they got SWAT and everybody trying to run in. And he told Monk to get somewhere because he's in danger because that guy's seen him. He knows what he looks like, and he might try to kill him because he knows that he's close to solving the case. Monk gets caught up because he's afraid of heights. He tries to catch the guy, but he ends up going past him because he has a mental breakdown because he's too far off the ground. And Leland is upset at him, and he's like, you're not ready for the badge. Monk is upset, but he realizes that whoever tried to run him down knows his face. And when he was inside the apartment where he was in the wheelchair, he didn't know him either. So he was letting Leland know that there's two people that they're looking for. The guy who tried to run him over, and they're looking for the guy that just ran away. And so he tells Monk he's off the case because he couldn't grab the guy in custody, even though this guy's like 6 foot. And also, it's funny. You know why? Because they told Monk he can't say anything. He's just observation. All he can do is observe, don't talk, don't speak, don't touch things. But the moment the guy who is stabbed one person and shot another and escaped police custody, it's somehow Monk's fault that he escaped, right? That makes no sense. They told Monk that he couldn't touch or do anything, except unless, if and when they want him to, which was then. They should have had people on the ground enough to go catch him. But you got Disher talking about, well, if we had him in custody, maybe we could have asked him about the second person as he's sipping his cup of joe. Mr. Don't Break No Sweat didn't run after nobody. Mr. Tell Monk don't do anything. Don't say anything. Don't touch anything. Except if this 6 foot man runs at him or walks past him or goes past him. Now he's supposed to become a cop. He's not on the beat, son. Leland, Mr. You're off the case. I can't believe he said that. It is not Monk's job to go catch guys, especially a guy who could be heavily armed. You scumbag piece of garbage. He's a civilian. You just said he was a civilian. But, he's Batman when you want him to be Batman. So he's talking about he's off the case. Sharona says, bite me. And he says, what do you say? Looking over a woman like that. Like Disher should have went through and be like, all right, man. You need to not press up on a woman like that because she didn't press up on you. She said, bite me. And you heard it. And she should have said it again. And you don't have the right to arrest her for saying bite me to a cop. If you say bite me to a cop, you shouldn't be like, all right, you're arrested now. Like, that's just some power trip. Laugh it off and get it together, son. Wipe the donut dust off your freaking goddamn mustache, Leland Stottlemyre. Why didn't you run after the 6'5" person, Mr. 6 foot? I thought you were 6 foot. Go freak it after him. But it's ridiculous how it's Monk. It's don't touch anything, Monk. Don't say anything. You're just an observer here until it's time to go catch the bad guy. Then he's supposed to have him in custody? What? Bite me. And the way that Disher treats Sharona, I hate how their relationship ends. I really do. I hate the enemies to lover trope. Please let that thing die. Let that thing die. That's a spoiler, by the way. And there is no chemistry between them. There is just banter back and forth. He literally just said, Oh, if we had him in custody, that would have been nice. Yeah, it would have been nice. Disher, why didn't you run after him, Disher? It's not Monk's job to catch bad guys, Disher. It's him. He's an observer. He's an observer until it's time to catch the bad guy. Then it's his job. So he has to observe everything and solve the case and catch the bad guy. What are these cops good for? Like, this is crazy. Leland is running a circus. So after that, after he's like, you know what? This has nothing to do with what happened today, Leland. This is between you and me. And he's like, it's not personal, Monk. It's just business. Like, yes, it is personal. It is personal. It's personal every time they talk. So Sharona is driving around and she goes to the parking garage where Monk is because he's sitting there trying to look for clues for who killed his wife literally like 3 years later or 4 years later or however many years later. He's sitting in the same parking garage she blew up in, because he thinks that the bomb was for him because he's put people behind bars. And Bundy's like, what is he doing? And it's exposition. It's really nice exposition because the little boy doesn't know what's going on. So it's interesting for her to say it. It's not just like some anime. I'm not even going to call him out. I'm just going to say some anime just be having exposition without even any reason to. It's just everyone's talking out loud for no reason. But she's actually explaining to her son why Monk is sitting in a freaking empty parking garage. And we don't have to hear it from somewhere else or have to hear it just out of nowhere or out of his mouth. It's literally like, it's a really good show. It's a really good show. Please watch this show. But every time Monk has an issue, like anytime he has a big issue, you'll always see him go back to trying to solve his wife's murder. It's the thing that keeps him going in life. So Sharona is like, hey, what's going on? And Benji is there skateboarding everywhere. And she's like, be careful. And we're almost done. I hope you guys are still here. And Monk is upset because he's like, I can solve every case in the world, but I can't solve my wife's murder. And he's upset. And it's funny because this is the first episode, right? The first episode is about someone being killed, but it's an indirect kill because they think that they're trying to go after the mayor, which now it's not a spoiler. Everyone knows that they weren't going after the mayor. They were going after the guy. But Monk doesn't really know that yet specifically. But it's literally coming up in 2 seconds. But literally, we know that it's an indirect killing. And I'm not going to spoil it. But what I am going to say is that this whole thing is another indirect killing. Like, this is a really setup. This is foreshadowing. Like, this is the biggest foreshadowing I think I've ever seen in the history. Like, you can talk about Attack on Titan all you want. Be like, oh, this foreshadowing. Oh my gosh, this foreshadowing. This first Monk episode is the foreshadow to the last Monk episode. Like, it's really amazing how well thought out this show is. I literally have to look up the writers of the show and I want to see other stuff from them because this is so magnificent. Whoever made this, I tip my hat to you. Kind madam, sir, whoever wrote Monk, this was such a good show. The group, who was the collective, whoever wrote this, amazing, like amazing. I'm just going to let you know that. There's 2 indirect killings. There's indirect killing, and then there's the foreshadowing of the indirect killing, and I'm not going to say any more about that. So, Benji runs into a trash can. Sharona starts yelling at him because she's like, how many times do I have to tell you to be careful? And Monk's like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm okay. And he says that like 6 or 7 times or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'm fine. It's an echo. You need to get out more. Because he's like, did you hear that? And he starts putting the pieces together. It doesn't make sense how the guy, Gavin, right-hand man or whoever I said, whatever hand I said he was in the beginning, the guy that's not having an affair with the mayor's wife, but the guy who was running the campaign, how he could have figured out where the gunshot came from, because where he set the location, there was an echo. So he said he could hear the gun go off. So Monk is like, all right, that just tells me that he's lying, because he was looking around to see if he could tell where Benji's voice was coming from without looking at him to know where he was, and he couldn't. The echo made it sound like it was coming from everywhere. So that's basically where we're at right now. And even though he just solved the case, he's upset because Leland Stottlemyre was like, oh, you're a leopard. There's a lot of ableism in this show. So that's another thing I would like to let you know. Like, it's just a warning. You're gonna see it. So he basically called him a leper and said that no one would work with him anymore and he's off the case and all that. So even though he solved the case, she's like, who did it? Because Sharona was always, every person that came into frame, she was like, that's the guy, that's the guy, that's the guy. But sometimes she's right, sometimes she's right. But she, in this first episode, she just says whoever is the killer. So Sharona goes to Sheldon's house and it's implied that she sleeps with him. But it's just like I said, like, I don't like the villainization of Sharona Fleming. And I feel like I will definitely see if there's anything on YouTube, but I haven't seen anyone try to help Sharona Fleming in everything, because no one takes the time to make excuses for women. But there's 10 billion reasons to like Walter White, or 10 billion reasons to like the Joker. Like, literally, I've seen people humanize the Joker. And Joaquin Phoenix did not humanize the Joker. He was still someone that you should not be like, yeah, that's cool. Like, he let one person live, big whoop. Anywho, we get to the end. Sharona gets the deputy mayor, or whatever his name is, the guy that she said, I ask you something and then you do it like a genie, basically. So everybody goes back to the scene of the crime where the guy shot, and he's like, Monk's like, all right, everybody get into position. Everyone get to where you need to. And we're looking for that guy's accomplice that ran away, because he's the big kahuna that we're after. So he tells the mayor to sit where he was and everybody to sit where they were, for the most part, because not everybody's there. There were a lot of other people. And of course, the guy who was killed, his bodyguard. And he tells everybody that he was the one that he wanted to kill, because he was a loose thread for whoever is the mastermind behind this whole situation. That guy, the right-hand man, the guy that was running the campaign, who is ambiguously brown. For all I know, he could be an Anglo-Saxon. But to me, he looks like he could be mixed with Cuban something. I don't know. But it's whatever. It's whatever. I don't care. He is the guy. Monk says he's the guy because he was taking out of the treasury. And he sits there and laughs about it. Like, bruh, that's the last thing you do when someone says, it's just like, I didn't do that. Like, that's all you gotta say. That's all you gotta do. You don't have to be like, ha, 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 ha. Don't make me, ha. Like, you do not have to do all that. That's just going to make you look more guilty. So he's like, you got to be kidding, right? Anyone going to listen to this quack who was right 10 billion times? Or are they going to listen to the guy who nobody will talk to because I keep taking the money out of the treasury? Like, oh my goodness. Mr. St. Clair is the guy who's running for mayor. So if I say St. Clair, that's what I'm talking about. If I'm talking about Mrs. St. Clair, I'm talking about his wife, okay? But I've already said both of their names, I think. Well, not his name, but I mean, I just did, but you know what I mean? Like, I already described him as something different, and I already described her as her name, Miranda. But I may say Mr. and Mrs. for the rest of the time, because this is the end of the show. So basically, Monk is like, bear with me, Mr. Sinclair. You stay where you were, stay on your mark. Everybody stay on their mark. Like I said, this is a thing that Monk does. He makes people stay on mark so that he can explain what happened. And the here's what happened is the really cool thing, because it's like backflashes to things that we've seen, maybe things we haven't seen. Sometimes they're true and sometimes they're not. Most of the time they're true. Sometimes they're from other people's perspectives. But it's really cool. The Here's What Happened is a staple of the show, and it's here to stay. So, the woman who was the bookkeeper figured out that he was taking the money, and he was like, you know what, maybe I can blame the money being stolen on her, or he could kill her, and that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to hire the bodyguard, but the bodyguard was like, yeah, nah, I'm not going to do that. So, he hired Ian Sykes, which was the guy who was the professional 6'5" guy, to kill her. And that he did. He was able to do it because he's got the money to. It's crazy because you'll get a lot of money and you'll just have to pay people off until like, at the end of time. So what he did was he killed the bodyguard and made it look like it was an assassination attempt, which not only increased the visibility of his campaign, but it also steered the police in the wrong direction. Monk's like, here's where you bumped the road. Here's your mistake. And he's like, my mistake? He literally looks invested like, what did I do wrong? Like, I can't believe he did that. If it's not you, then don't look. Like, bro, be like, I didn't make no mistakes. I didn't do this. Like, he's like, my mistake. Let me look at it real quick. Like, that's crazy. And then every time that campaign mayor, the candidate guy, tries to walk up and look at any information, he's like, hey, you need to get back to your spot. You need to get back to your spot. He's like, okay, I don't even get to look at anything. He's like, okay, here you go. The photographer took a picture of you, and it wasn't a photographer. It was just some random person. I think it was the leaked footage was from a random person. But he was like, he pointed exactly where it was. He's like, that's where your mistake was. You should have acted like you didn't know where it came from, because you have evidence of pointing where it was. And he's like, oh, I saw it. I could hear it. And he's like, all right, okay, that's cool. He's like, all right, Sharona, I want you to shoot the blank, because she's got a gun and it's a blank, and she's shooting it up to the sky so that he can try to reenact the shooting so that it's like, what's her face is somewhere. So let me know where you hear it. And she shoots it, and he's looking around, and he's like, over there. He's like, are you sure? He's like, over there. And he's like, and then he starts flipping out. He got caught. He got gagged. Monk gagged him. And it's funny because that guy's like, do it again. I want to redo. Again. The mayor candidate guy is like, and you call yourself my Moses. Get out of here. First of all, some white guy, I can't believe some ethnically ambiguous brown man was written by some white person to say he was some old white crusty man's Moses. That's crazy to say. That's crazy. Mind you, all that stuff, you know where that took place? Egypt. And that's not in Anglo-Saxon of the Caucasus Mountain land. That's not in Britain. I'm going to let you know that right now. So I think that's very interesting. And that's crazy how they got this ambiguously brown person to say that. That is ludicrous. Whoever wrote that line, sick. And it's even sicker that Monk said, just like the real Moses, you won't be joining him in the promised land. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. All that is ludicrous. That was unnecessary. And he's like, I didn't have any choice. She was going to bury me. And everybody starts running away from him. And he just got shot. He just got shot in front of everybody. That ambiguously brown guy, the right-hand guy, that got shot by that guy that he hired to kill everybody that was the bodies left behind, literally. And Sharona is hiding because she sees him, and she's got blanks, so she can't even shoot that guy. Because if I had a real gun, I'd be like, boom, I play enough Apex. I would have got him in his knee. And I say knee, not because I took an arrow in the knee, Skyrim style, okay? I'm talking about when he's shooting out that window, boy, he got his knee to his eyeball. Oh my goodness, watch this episode, if you don't believe me. So Sharona's like, I'm going to be Lois Lane. When I told you, I'm not no nerd toxic or doom chicken or quarter of a man. I'm not one of those people who read comics like it's the Bible and then pray over it. But honestly, I know that Lois Lane is not Oracle. I know that the way she talks about who she was she's like, I'm like Lois Lane. Lois Lane only knows stuff that she knows when she knows it. She doesn't know it because she's Wade. I don't know how to say it, but all I know is she's moving around she could be Oracle, and not even Oracle because Oracle was in a wheelchair. She could be Batwoman. So she's running around looking for this guy. Monk tells Leland, and he's still not listening to him. He's like, whatever. But he's telling Leland, yeah, this guy's got a plan. I think whatever y'all are doing, it's not going to work. So Sharona is there with the walkie-talkie telling everybody where he's at so that they can cut him off before he gets out of the building. And unfortunately, he eventually ends up in the sewers. That's his plan, because everybody was on the street. Everybody was waiting for him on the street. And Disher gives Monk a gun, literally, like it's crazy. And Monk is like, stop or I'll shoot. And Sharona's literally fighting, and she's like, get him. And he's like distracted by all the poo water where the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are like having day-old pizza. Literally, and the water is so nasty he can't even focus. And Sharona's fighting for her life. Mind you, this is a 6'5" man she is fighting, who is a mercenary. And she is holding her own. He's got the gun. He accidentally threw it in the water, or had it thrown in the water. Like, there's a lot of he got butterfingers in this entire episode. Like, him and that chain on that dead body. And now he's got to dig the gun out of the water. And now he's going to try to shoot this guy. And he's got Sharon in front of him. And he grabs the wire on the side of the wall so that he can't see her. And he shoots as she's screaming in the darkness. Adrian Monk shoots that man. It's crazy. In the darkness. So we don't know what happens until like 2 seconds later when they tell us. So Sharona's screaming at him because she's like, I could have been killed. He's like, I knew what I was doing. I was aiming high. The man's King Kong. Like, he's basically talking about how tall that dude is. And he's like, oh, I knew I wasn't going to shoot you because I knew you were shorter than him. And she was like, what if it ricocheted? And he's like, well, I didn't think of that. And they literally just crawled out of the sewer all wet and gooey. And they're like in the middle, like, of everything. And they run up to the mayor, still stankin'. And the police take that tall guy into custody. And the mayor guy, he's like, oh, on the behalf of myself and the whole Miranda and everybody, city of San Francisco, we want to thank you. And he hugs him, even though he stinks. He stinks of sewer. He literally just crawled out about the sewer. It was like, and Sharona doesn't even get no thank you or nothing. She's the one that fought him hand-to-hand combat, veteran warrior mercenary, hand-to-hand combat, and she survived. But no thank you to her. And they're like, oh, Mr. Monk, everybody's like, Mr. Monk, and he feeling himself. Now he's back at his doctor's office, Dr. Kroger. He's like, my son wants an autograph from you. You're really something. You're really good. And we got the picture on the wall. And he's like, I'd be happy to meet your boy if you want. And he's like, anybody would have done the same thing. And just, I put my foot on one shoe at a time, like, basically. Honestly, he just says crazy stuff. I said it backwards on purpose. I said that backwards thing on purpose, too. So don't be acting like I'm being backwards. But I'm talking about reinstating you and stuff, because he's working with the police. Like I said, he is the doctor that he has to go to in order for them to know if he's good enough to be on the force or not. He's really happy. He sheds a tear about being on the force. He's like, I can only make a recommendation. I can't really say that it's going to do anything, but this is a step in the right direction. So Kroger is literally walking with him. You think that he's about to get shot. Everything's going so well because this is that type of show. Like, bad things happen anytime something good happens. But he's about to go into the elevator, and there's a woman that's coughing a storm. In that moment, he was like, oh, I'm going to do that and da-da-da-da. And he's like, okay, I'm done. We don't have to talk anymore. I'm done with this. Everything's great. And the moment he sees that woman coughing, he's like, see you next week. He's like, see you next week. It's ridiculous. I don't want to be in no elevator with someone who's coughing up a storm and not covering their mouth. Who wants to be in the room with that? That does not have nothing to do with how ridiculous Monk is or whatever disease he may have. I don't want to be in a room with no child eating their boogers either. What is the problem? There's a lot of things that they act like is something that is ridiculous. I put hand sanitizer on all the time. When I was younger, when I was a kid, when I was in elementary school, I had hand sanitizer in my purse because I am not dirty. I don't just go outside in the dirt and then play outside and then go inside and then eat lunch. You wash your hands, or you put hand sanitizer if you don't have access to anything to wash your hands with. So at the end of it, Monk is still the way he is. He has to keep touching everything. He's still with Sharona. Sharona's still with him. They're walking down the thing, and they're all just hanging out. And he's like, another day, another dollar. His case closed, but he still doesn't know who killed his wife and why. So that's the end of season 1, episode 1, Mr. Monk meets the candidate. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This was a very, very, very long one. I'm going to do my best to condense it less than 2 hours, but we are at the 2 hour mark. We hit the 2 hour mark about 20 minutes ago, so I'm going to do my best to condense this. I don't know when it's going to be out, but hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you have any other ideas of what TV shows I should do next for the first taste. I would rather do ones that I enjoy. You might see Once Upon a Time coming soon. You might see Rain. You might see The Tudors. You might see something like that. I really want to do The Golden Girls, but I had to do Monk because I want to do Mr. Monk and His Last Case, the movie, where it's basically like years later, and it's really cool. It's really cool that some people come back, and I will always stand firm with Sharona, for Sharona, Team Sharona. I hate Natalie Teeger. Can't stand her. Can't stand how she parents her daughter. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you thought of Monk. Let me know if you've seen Monk before, or if this is your first introduction to Monk. I recommend watching the movie after every single episode of the 8 seasons that it ran. Thank you. I hope everyone has a great day, and be safe out there. Keep warm, and always remember that you can always change. You can always be better the next day. We can also critique things we like without making excuses. I love Monk. Monk is great. But Monk is a jerk. The actual character Monk is a jerk. There are a lot of jerks in this show. And there's a lot of misogyny. But I can still critique it and like it. And with that, I'm done.